The fertility rate, which we talked about earlier in the week in Australia, is currently 1.6 children per woman, which means that we are below the replacement rate, which is 2.1 children per woman. Well, it's even worse in Japan, where they have this week recorded the lowest ever fertility rate, which is 1.3 children per women. So the Tokyo City Council has come up with a novel idea. They are starting a dating app to try and encourage people in Japan to, well, hook up and have children. If you have a look at the numbers, it is quite stark in Japan right now. If you look at marriages, for instance, between 2022 and 2023, you had 519,000 marriages in 2022. That was down to 489,000 in 2023. Meanwhile, deaths were up for 1,582,000 to 1,590,000. And births were down from 799,000 to 758. Meanwhile, divorces were also up from 183,000 to 187. So you have a very clear problem here. It's much the same as Australia. If you want the population to keep growing, and that, of course, is how you keep the economy growing, you need to import people. So they've said, well, bugger that, we're just going to get people to get married. Now, I don't know whether I would particularly want to use a government-issued dating app. I mean, I don't really want the government involved in my dating life, to be perfectly honest. And there are rumours that are yet to be confirmed, but apparently in Japan, when you go on a dating app, it's quite customary to tell them what your income is. And there are rumours that you'll have to sign a document to say that you are legally single, and you'll even have to provide your tax return to prove what your income is. But what an interesting ideal is that the local council is so worried about the fact that people are not getting married and having kids that they are starting their own dating app. Should we do it here?
They're taking this seriously, as they should. In fact, when you look at the different policies that different countries have to promote marriage, to promote families, Australia just seems to be nowhere. We can see similar happening in our own demographics. It's been happening for a very long time, and we've simply done nothing. If you look at Hungary, those guys, you get a 25% reduction in your income tax, ladies, for every single child you have. Therefore, if you have 4 children, no income tax for the rest of your life. Finland and Sweden, you get an allowance, a monthly allowance for every single child you have until that child turns 16. Then the allowance gets turned off. Singapore have, similar to our baby bonus, $11,000 for each kid you have. Unless it's the 3rd child, then it goes up and it's $13,000.
And they need it in Singapore because they've actually got a lower fertility rate than Japan.
Indeed, but at least these governments are just like, OK, how can we encourage and promote marriage, have kids, families, and they're putting in place policies, even really creative ones like this. Obviously, it's not a policy, but they're doing what they can to facilitate that. And I'm constantly ripping my hair out that Australia just seems to be watching it happen year in, year out, decade in, decade out now. It was back in 2000 that at that time it was the lowest fertility rate on record for Australia ever at 1.7. And the Howard government was like, right, baby bonus. The very next year, they got those stats and they were like, we got to do something. Our governments, successive governments, have simply just gone, oh, well, we'll import. That's it. We'll just rely on immigration. That is no way to keep a country up and running.
I love it. I'm obsessed with this story. I just cannot get enough of it. I walked into, as you know, I'm a stickler for preparation before a show.
Oh, yeah, I've seen you doing the crossword.
I will not rest until I've time for. And so the one thing I brought into the budget lockup, I brought nothing else in except for an article I found in the Wall Street Journal for several weeks ago that was this amazing feature about this whole deep dive into the declining fertility rates all over the world. So it's not just a Japan thing, like you say, it's not just an Australia thing. It's happening everywhere across the entire Western world and developing countries too. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to thread the needle. I've just nailed it. I know what is going to put in the budget. There's going to be a baby bonus, I'm convinced, and I've got right in my hand all I need. Anyway, needless to say, there was no baby bonus. I had absolutely nothing to write about. But it is true, we need to do something. You cannot run an economy and you cannot, more importantly, pay for old people. We've got an ageing population. And China's about to find this out in a really big way as well.
So that's why they dropped the one-child policy.
Exactly right.
And some of their provinces also have... I would have thought that China would be the last country to be like, we're worried about... I'm like, you had the one-child policy for ages and now you're worried about your fertility rate. But some of their provinces, they also have either baby bonus type policies up and running or similar. So I was shocked to learn that.
That's right. And it's a product of people applying these policies and not actually thinking them through, not actually thinking what the long... I mean, obviously, communist China doesn't understand economics in the first place, but not actually thinking about what this will happen. And this is why I love what the Japanese are doing. I'm not entirely sure if it's going to work.